I would like to share with you today a couple of stories which are both surprising but true. The first one goes to the essence of you. So essence is a bit of a heavy word, but I'm sure each one of us, each one of you knows exactly what I mean. What it feels like to be you. So sitting in your chair, being comfortable, maybe less comfortable, looking forward to the next talk, maybe kind of zoning out on this one, thinking forward to dinner. You know, this is what it feels like to be me. I'm certainly looking forward to dinner tonight. And each one of you, again, knows what it feels like to be you. So the essence of you, this is the surprise maybe, the essence of you is computation. That's the first true story. The second one is that this insight, and this is a true insight, actually is a win for humanism. And the surprise here, maybe even a bit of an offense for someone, how could be something so maybe dehumanized or dehumanizing as computation be at the bottom of what it is like, what it feels like to be human? So that's the double surprise and the double truth in what I have in store for you in the next few minutes. So this second insight having to do with ethics is maybe especially difficult to stomach because of the very kind of seemingly heavy-handed explanatory move that I have to engage in to convince you that the essence of you is in computation. The explanatory move is borrowed from Alice in Wonderland. So remember the scene in which Alice is attacked by a pack of vicious cards, and she fends them off by saying, basically maybe to herself in part, you're nothing but the pack of cards, which worked very effectively for her, raised her spirits up. So patterned on that, here's an observation by Francis Crick, the Nobel Prize-winning neurobiologist. You're nothing but a pack of neurons. That's this heavy-handed reduction. Heavy-handed, but true. If you feel you're not entirely certain about you boiling down your being confined to your brain or to your neurons, imagine yourself in a situation where you can be either the donor or the recipient of a brain transplant. Like, ask yourself, what would you like rather to be, the donor or the recipient here? I think this really drives home the point that in some sense, on some level, you're definitely your brain. But it cannot be the entire story because, you know, your brain, when you're out cold, maybe asleep without dreaming, or just really not entirely conscious, that doesn't amount to you. For one thing, that brain in that state doesn't feel. So it has to be something that the brain does. And so the next question that we have to ask ourselves to understand how come we are our brains, but yet there's something more to that, that something more is the activity, what brains do. And when we ask about any organ of our bodies, what it is that our organs do, we always have to turn to evolution. So here's an observation which is always kept in mind by biologists. Nothing in biology makes sense except in light of evolution. And so what brains do is they evolve to compute. And patterned on that saying by Theodosius Dobzhansky, what I would like to offer you as another way of summarizing this insight is nothing in the brain makes sense except in the light of computation. Or to reuse the Alice in Wonderland phrase, you're nothing but an outbreak of computation. So maybe I'll give you a few seconds to let the outrage mount and then proceed with the argument. People usually don't find it difficult to wrap their minds around the fact that you know, anything that your phone does, of course your phone is a computer, that amounts to computation. So that goes for face recognition, navigation, maybe cars that drive themselves, that definitely just boils down to some numbers being crunched by the computer. But what about feelings? What about consciousness? How could feelings amount to computation? So I want to put to you the case that feelings are there as well. I'm not claiming that computers, as we know them at this point, have feelings, but nevertheless, feelings themselves, when computed by our brains, are just computations. Here's an example that I would offer you to support this intuition, this truth. What you see here on your right is a dynamical scene unfolding. It's a panorama shot from the top of the Corkscrew Peak in Death Valley, which I was on the top of just a month ago, over my spring break. I climbed that peak. It's about 6,000 feet above the floor of Death Valley. On the right, what you see is a slice from, I think that actually this is my brain, not scanned while I was there, but just used for illustration purposes to give you a notion of what brain activity looks like when you image it with a functional imaging device or something like that. So what's happening inside my brain is computation, of course, because all computation is just patterned activity. And when I stand on top of this peak and I look around, my brain computes all kinds of things about the environment. It represents the world. It makes diagnosis. For instance, it diagnoses places, directions in which I probably should not be heading, like getting very close to a cliff. In fact, that place up on top of the mountain was pretty precipitous in some directions. So that's the diagnosis that the brain makes. But most importantly for us, the brain also cannot help but feel that. So those computations are felt. Part and parcel of the computation that comes with the assessment that here I'm looking down at a drop of maybe 500 feet is the kind of tingling behind my knees, and I can't get rid of it, not by an effort of will, because of the work of evolution. Evolutionarily speaking, it would be not really very effective for us, for all animals, to be in complete control of their feelings. Imagine you feel scared, maybe because you suspect there's a lion out there in the tall grass, but you set aside that feel of fright just because you decide, I'll think about something else. We can't help but feel, well, of course, the fright and the joy maybe of being on top of that mountain, but also every aspect of the visual environment that we take in, every aspect of the sound environment, every aspect of the world comes packaged with feelings. Some of those feelings are very, very explicit and, of course, evolutionarily very easy to understand why they are there, like that tingling in the back of my knees when I stand on the top of the cliff. Others, we just are so used to them that they come and go, and this is the feeling of seeing red in front of me, or hearing a bird sing outside this time of the year. Finally, we have some birds singing outside this hall. And so those feelings are just like everything else, every other kind of diagnosis and representation that the brain does. Those feelings are kinds of computation as well. And again, this is not something that's optional for us. This is something that's intrinsic to the system, intrinsic to the thing that the brains do, that they have evolved to be doing. Our experience of the world is unavoidably felt. So that line, the brain is wider than the sky, actually happens to be literally true. And it comes with an interesting consequence. If your entire experience consists of computed representations, this means that your world, your entire world, everything that you experience is a virtual reality. It's being constructed by your brain for the sake of yourself that is experiencing this world. Here's kind of an instant psychological experiment to convince you of this truth. This complete black screen is what it looks like, what the world looks like from the vantage point of your brain, kind of trivially, right? Inside your skull, you hope there's complete darkness at the moment. And yet you see some light, right? You see me, maybe the screen is black, but you see something. So that's actually the more trivial aspect of this predicament, the predicament of you being your brain locked inside your skull. An even more interesting aspect of this issue comes to light if you realize the world, the way I see it right now, is not quite the same as the world seen through my left eye or through my right eye. It's something in between, not quite this, not quite that. So it's an image that's synthesized by the brain from the two images, each of which is registered by one of your two eyes. And then one can ask a geometrical question. Where's that vantage point from which we experience the world, from which the world is seen as it is seen by us. So it so happens that that vantage point is inside your skull, about an inch behind the bridge of your nose, again, in complete darkness. So everything that you're experiencing right now, your sight, your the sounds that you hear, the whatever smells you might smell, everything is put up as a kind of a show for the purpose of you who is inside your skull. So that's your world. And what about you? So this is where the point is really to be driven home. You are made of representations too. So the same goes for yourself and not just the world that you're experiencing. So here's a breakdown of the different levels of you. And we can start from the bottom. Representations of the world. This is something that we saw in that illustration with the standing on the mountaintop. The world is represented inside the brain. Diagnosis telling steep from not steep. Feelings, those are feelings. And of course, the more powerful feelings of caring. Is it scary or is it not scary where I'm standing? Is it scary or not so where I'm heading? That's the selfless awareness. That's something that we share with all sentient creatures. So if you have a pet dog at home, the dog has a selfless awareness. If you raise some scallops in your aquarium at home, the scallops are aware of the world in the same sense by carrying out the same computations on that level as your brain does. And then on top of that, there are additional computations that make for body ownership. I feel right now that this arm belongs to me. Agency, I have certain goals. They are my goals. So this is the minimal self that comes on top of the basic layer. And then the perspective, I happen to be here right now. I experience my world from this vantage point. And on top of that comes the topmost level, the most sophisticated level. This one probably is not shared, definitely not by scallops, probably also not by dogs. Self-awareness. I'm very much aware that I'm standing in front of a largish audience. Episodic memories, what I did today, this morning, what I did yesterday, what my autobiography boils down to. Stories about the self, this is the topmost level. And all of those, if you think about them, ponder this stuff, even for a little while, you'll realize that all those are representations too. From the bottom, from the very basic stuff, the perceptual representations, all the way up to the top. So to pick up maybe just one point here, the perspective, the fact that my visual perspective on the visual world that I'm experiencing is virtual can be demonstrated by a very simple trick. I can go out and buy Oculus glasses, put the goggles on my face, and connect them to a camera that's somewhere in the corner of the room. Instantaneously, I'll be transposed to that corner of the room, and I'll start experiencing the world as it is there. In fact, a really nifty trick that you can pull off here, if you get hold of some tactile interface, so a bunch of maybe a small matrix of vibrating elements that can be connected to a camera, you can put that next to the small of your back, and the camera would transmit the image through the skin of your back. Very soon you will start ignoring, you'll just become completely oblivious of the fact that the image is transmitted to you via the skin of the small of your back. And not only you will be seeing yourself as being over there, you'll be doing so via the skin of the small of your back. So if that's not virtual reality, I don't know what is. So the essence of you is virtual. And now we come to the second truth, surprising maybe, truth about the universe that we inhabit, which I would like to introduce using a very poetic, very nice on some level saying from my ethnic neck of the woods. This is a saying from the Talmud, the famous sages, Jewish sages 2,000 years ago in Palestine, sitting down thinking about ethics and trying to instruct others in that kind of stuff. So in the Talmud, there is this saying which goes, "Whosoever saves a single soul is regarded as though he saved a complete world, which is really something nice and resonates with many people on a deep level. Maybe in a religious manner, maybe in a poetic manner, but the fascinating insight into our condition is that this saying is literally true, because if the self, yourself, myself, the self inhabits a complete self-made virtual world, then yes, each one of us, when we are saved, if we are saved from, say, falling off that cliff in that valley, this amounts to an entire world being saved. The virtual world that consists of the representations of the outside universe that my brain puts up for my sake, and also myself, which is a bunch of representations being attuned to that outside world and carrying out judgment and decision, but also engaging by virtue of the computations that this self carries out, engaged in feeling the world. So the self inhabits a complete world, and that sounds like a pretty good reason for which we can choose a particular ethical course in life. And this is a reason, to my mind, that is somewhat more believable than an appeal to higher authority or any other kind of opium for the masses. We don't need that kind of stuff to behave as we should. We need to learn what we are. We need to reason about what needs to be done. And then once we do that, once we have done that, we behave in ways that we understand we should behave in. Thank you.